Welcome to second lecture of how technology transfer can be facilitated through strategic alliance. Now, I will talk with you regarding the negotiation and contractual aspect of strategic alliance. There are various stages in case of negotiation of strategic alliance. Mainly we can divide these stages into a two broad category. One is a pre-negotiation or due diligence, and the second one is contract negotiation. So, let me take you through the understanding of pre-negotiation or due diligence. Now, whenever you are going for a technology acquisition, one of the important thing is that how you are going to choose your partner. So, you should have some set criteria placed before you start this strategic alliance process, or before you think to enter into a strategic alliance. Because if your partner is not right, if you are not chosen a right kind of technology, if you are importing the technology which has a lot of difficulty to manufacture in the environment where you are importing that particular technology, or if that particular technology is capital intensive and the market where you are importing that particular technology, people are unable to pay for the cost of that particular technology, then in that case your technology import or strategic alliance might not sustain for a long time. So, one need to be very careful while they are choosing their partners, and that is the reason you should prepare a selection criteria for appropriate partners. Now, while you are preparing this selection criteria, what are the things you should keep in the mind? The first thing is the type of organization with whom you are entering into a contract. Second thing is that the person with whom you are entering into contract, do they have a technology with their own, or they have basically licensed the technology from somebody else and they have developed on that particular technology, and you wanted to enter with that particular company. Then in that case there might be lot of hidden issues with that particular company, and you should be aware of that thing. Third thing might be what are the type of equipment is required for absorbing that particular technology or to manufacturing the product by using that particular technology. And if you are producing that particular technology, what are the process cost or what are the manufacturing cost of that particular product which you are going to use with that particular technology. Please remember, in the world, for a same kind of product or similar kind of product, there are alternative technologies are available, and while you are choosing your partner, you also should focus about what are the alternatives available before you, and you should be careful about choosing that particular alternative. The next thing is you should also be aware of the fact that what are the lifespan of that particular technology. That means, you today you basically absorb a technology or import a technology, and you found that after a couple of years of time that particular technology is changed and new technology has come. So, you should be in a position to change that particular scenario, or you already found that there is a new technology has been developed, but you are basically importing or you are basically absorbing a old technology, then in that case you are going to be at loss. So, choosing the partner or selecting the criteria is one of the very important thing in case of the strategic alliance. And please do remember that this selection criteria is going to help you in your sustenance of the business, at the same time sustenance of your product in the domestic market, as well as if you have a foreign ambition to export this particular product in the foreign market, then also it will going to help you. So, I just give you some understanding about selection criteria, but it should be depend on the type of sectors you are entering into strategic alliance, or it is also depend on type of business where you are wanted to enter into a strategic alliance, or it is also even depend on the regulatory structure which is prevalent of that particular market where you are going to do this particular strategic alliance. So, this is also known as a due diligence, and please remember this due diligence process is a very crucial thing, because if you fail in due diligence, then it might lead to failure of strategic alliance too, or you might spend a lot of capital, energy, time, but at the end of the day you might not able to achieve whatever you wanted to achieve through this particular strategic alliance. Second important thing is that understanding the partner's motives for joining this particular alliance. Why the partner are interested to join you into this particular strategic alliance? Is it that he want to expand his business into a new market? Is it that he wanted to have an understanding about this particular new market? Is it that it want to transfer those particular technology which they found that well they are no good into the market where they are doing this particular business. So, they wanted to dump that particular technology. Is it that they think that well for their sustenance they have to stay in another market for a longer period of time? Let me give you some example which make you understand this particular thing. Possibly you are aware of the fact that BlackBerry is one point of time known to be a very good smartphone, and they used to say that well this is a wireless email you can get out of this particular BlackBerry. And one point of time when this iPhone came into the market, they actually started sinking from their business into this developed market like US, UK, Canada, even their home country Canada, Australia, and so much so forth. So, what they started finding those particular market where they do not have an initial base like Indonesia, some of the Latin American country, some of the Asian country which is underdeveloped or just developing, and they wanted to have their sustaining revenue out of this particular market. So, there can be several intention for a company to partner with you, but you should be very careful why they are interested to partner with you. It might so happen that the company found that well you have a lot of natural resources where you are doing this particular business, and they can source this particular resources much cheaper cost than whatever they are sourcing in their own country or host country. So, they wanted to have alliance with you. It might be the minerals, it might be even the labors, it might be even the cheap capital which is available. So much so forth, there might be a reason for the people to understand that why they wanted to partner with you. The next important thing is that you should understand the partner's strength as well as the weakness too. Now, your partner might be very good in the development of the technology, or even further building of the technology. So, to put it in other way around, they have a very strong R&D team, but your partner might not be very good in marketing of the product. Your partner might not be very good relating to raising of the fund which is required for expansion of the business. Your partner even might not be good to manage a particular affair into a market. So, you need to understand that where they have a strength and where they have a weakness, because if you find that their weakness is your strength, then it is a good collaboration or good strategic alliance to go ahead with, because you can then really supplement to each other. But wherever you have a weakness and they have a weakness and you wanted to have a combination, then in that case it might lead to a fatal combination. So, you should be careful into this particular thing. Second thing is that most of the time you will find wherever people go for the strategic alliance, one of the partner want to be a very dominant partner into this transaction. You need to be careful on that particular account also, because if you do not have a control at the end of the day over the entire process of strategic alliance, then there is a no point to enter into a strategic alliance. Even I will advise at that particular point of time, it is good to have technology transfer instead of the strategic alliance, because in that particular context the cost of transferring the technology will be lesser than that of a strategic alliance. Please do remember, which I have told in the last lecture also, that while you are going for a strategic alliance, most of the time revenue model is a profit sharing, and if it is a profit sharing, then in that case you basically sell a lot of money with your strategic alliance partner. So, if you are not in a same platform, if you find that your strategic alliance partner is a dominant partner, at the same time they have many weaknesses, whatever the technology they wanted to transfer, then in that case you should be careful. So, what I will say that, see, these particular weaknesses cannot be understood or cannot be discovered by a one sitting. Rather, you need to have a continuous exercise of diligence throughout the deal, even before you start this particular deal. So, I generally advise the people that you should first understand about this particular company, whatever the information is available in a public domain. So, you should do proper homework, and then you will try to find out that what are the information which you are looking for not available in the public domain. So, go and get those particular information from these particular people. If necessary, you sign a non disclosure agreement with that particular company, because that is one of the very important thing. If they want to share some of the sensitive information to you, which you are not supposed to divulge except for this particular strategic, except whatever you can use for this particular strategic alliance. Furthermore, you should have a dedicated team who is going to do all the time this particular due diligence, and they are going to unearth the information which is required for you before you really sign this final strategic alliance agreement, or so much so forth. Now, the next thing is that you need to address the resource capability gap that might exist for a partner, and this resource capability gap might be manifold. It might be out of the capital, it might be out of the manufacturing process which they have, it might be relating to the cultural issues, it might be relating to many other things. Let me try to give example, one of the example of this particular thing. Sometimes it so happen that a Japanese company has acquired a company in Greece, and you possibly aware of the fact that two countries work culture is totally different from each other. In case of the Greece, people think that work is a necessary part of the life, but apart from that you have to have a quite a good leisure to have a good work. But whereas if you look into the Japanese process, they will find they are more on efficiency and giving the product in time and all those particular things. So, sometimes if you have placed the Japanese manager in a grease factory, then you will find that it is not going to give you a desired outcome. Similarly, the cultural difference might create a lot of problem if you wanted to go for a strategic analysis. So, at that particular point of time, so you need to understand these particular resource capabilities, because please remember, which I was discussing other time also, under this strategic alliance you need to bring some trained people within your organization to train another group of people within your organization from the company who is transferring the technology, because at the end of the day your objective is that you want to absorb the technology within your organization, so that you can grow tomorrow independently without the support of your partner. So, the due diligence process is one of the important thing, and you should be careful about this particular due diligence. So, here I have given you a 4 pointer, but it is not all. You might have a more pointer than this, and you should know what are the things you should add with this particular thing, because as I told you, it is depend on the sector where you wanted to go for essay. It is also depend on the market where you wanted to go for essay. It is also depend on the technology where you wanted to go for strategic alliance or essay, so on and so forth. So, you should be expanding your this indicator based on the business dealing which you wanted to enter upon. And please remember, many of the time even the regulatory due diligence is also one of the important thing, because you might have everything right, but at the end of the day you will find that you really cannot transfer this particular technology or enter into strategic alliance, because the law of your country do not allow you to do so. Like in case of the India, you will find we are going for a flexible norms, but if you have looked into the regulatory norms even 10 years or 20 years before, you might have seen that we have a very complex compliance regime. And if you really track this particular issues, then you will find that India is used to be quite low in rank in compared to other countries in ease of doing the business, because compliance requirement in India was very high. But this government is trying to easing out this particular process, and they are trying to facilitating more this particular joint venture and strategic alliance to be incorporated in our country by easing this particular norms of doing the business. Now, let me take you to the next issues of strategic alliance, that is a contract negotiation. Now, as I have said that the precondition of pre-negotiation or due diligence is that to know your partner well, that what is their strength, what is their weakness, how they can benefit to you, what is their motive to entering into a relationship, so much so forth. Once you do that, the next stage is that how to negotiate the contract, because as I have told to you that it can be a very formal contract or hard contract, or it can be a flexible contract in terms of memorandum of understanding or memorandum of association, so much so forth. So, in those particular circumstances, whatever you do, either you go for a hard contract or you go for a soft understanding of the relationship, you need to go through the agreement process, or you need to go through the contract negotiation, because contract negotiation is a stage before you sign the formal agreement with your partner. So, while you do the contract negotiation, you should keep couple of things in your mind. The first thing is, all the parties should have a realistic object. many of the time you will find some people are very ambitious while they are entering into strategic alliance, but you should be grounded into your objective or the ambition whatever you wanted to achieve out of this particular strategic alliance. Please do understand that, well, when you are handshaking with your partners, you are basically unknown entity to each other, and there is a lot of constraints. It can be internal constraints, and some constraints may be external constraints. Even if you have a lot of willingness to go ahead, but these particular constraints might not allow you to go ahead the way you wanted to go ahead. Like possibly you thought that, well, you are going to start the project within 2 years of time, because you thought that, well, wherever you are putting this project, you have a lot of government support and the government really want this particular project to get through. But you might find that at the end of the day, there is this kind of a political agitation outbreak into this particular project. Let me draw your attention in this, like it is not relating to example of ASHA, I mean strategic alliance or the joint venture, but is something like putting up the new project or a new understanding, like as Tata has put up the project in India, in West Bengal, relating to the nano. All of it is in Singur, and Tata thought at that particular point of time that government was interested in that particular project, they were supportive to this particular project, so they can really get through this particular project. And the West Bengal has a stable government for last 30 years, but you all of you have seen that there is a political agitation, and because of that particular political agitation, the project has to be wind up from West Bengal and it has to be shifted to other state. So, what I was trying to talking about, there might be a lot of risks around, some risks which can be predictable, some risks which is obvious, so you try to control those particular risks, but even some of the risks after having understanding and you have taken an adequate measure, those particular risks might not be able to control. So, you should be realistic into your objective, and at the same time you should have a number of options available before you. If one does not work, then in that case how you are going to go shift to the second one quickly, second plan quickly, so that you can really execute the ASHA which you wanted to do. Second thing is defining each other contribution and reward, as well as to protect any proprietary information. This is a very serious thing, and you should be take it this particular thing in a lot of seriousness. Let me start with the last point, that is the protect any proprietary information. Like when you are going for a strategic alliance, many of the time you basically share many sensitive information to your partner, or your partner shares many sensitive information to you. This sensitive information may be relating to your organization setup, this sensitive information may be relating to the management, this sensitive information may be relating to the financial issues of your company, it might be relating to the regulatory or legal difficulties which the company is facing, it might be relating to the technology which you are wanted to negotiate on, so much so forth. And these particular informations people share because they are having an intention to go ahead with the partnership with you. So, if this particular partnership did not work, there is every possibility that this particular information spill over into the public domain, and then your opponent, that means the company who wanted to transfer those particular technology, or you as a company who wanted to receive this particular technology, might face difficulty into the market or from your competitor into the market. So, you need to protect both of your interest during this particular negotiation process, not only the negotiation during the time of negotiation, even after the negotiation too. So, it is always advisable that you should enter into non-disclosure agreement (NDA), and while you are drawing the NDA, you should be meticulously put all the point into this particular NDA. I generally suggest the people that before you enter into NDA, please draw a checklist and then mutually vet this particular checklist, both this particular party, before you sign this particular NDA. What is this particular checklist? Checklist means the item which you wanted to cover under this non-disclosure agreement, and you put those particular thing in a meticulous manner. Sometimes you need to go much deeper into the understanding of this particular thing, because sometimes you might think that well, NDA has covered some of the information, some of the item, but at the end of the day when you will find the dispute arise, that there is a no coverage on those particular matter. So, this is a complex process, and you should always take a help from the professional to do this particular thing, or even if you do yourself, then in that case you should educate yourself that what are the information which you are going to share each other. Now, next important thing is that the partner contribution and the rewards. Now, how the partner is going to contribute? Is your partner is only bringing the technology to you, or your partner also not only the bringing the technology to you, they are also bringing the capital for this particular strategic alliance, or they are also bringing some the experience which you do not have to do the business relating to this particular product. So, that you also be very clear into this particular issues, like if you are if you think that well, your partner is bringing the capital either in form of equity or the debt, then in that case you are required to enter into agreement that how you are going to going to utilize this particular capital, and then if the partner at any point of time exit this particular organization, then in that case what are the options available with them. Now, when we are talking about the rewards, we basically talk about the profit sharing, but meaning of the reward is more than a profit sharing. It might be relating to the sharing of the technology which you have developed out of this particular strategic alliance. It might be relating to sharing of the goodwill or the brand value which you have developed through this particular strategic alliance. It might be sharing of the supply chain or kind of a establishment which you have developed through this particular strategic alliance. So, whatever it may, you should be very clear on this particular thing, and then in that case you have a clear understanding into this particular process. Again, my suggestion is that you should prepare a checklist, and you should know what are the matter to be included into this particular agreement. And some people suggest that you should have umbrella agreement, that means you are going to include everything in a single agreement, but my suggestion is that instead of doing that, you should have a combination of agreements, or there should be a number of agreements which should enter upon, and that will basically facilitate in execution process and later on. Now, the next thing is that you should be aware about the termination clause, that what are the exit option is available and how you are going to make this particular exit. Because exit is one of the contentious issues if there is a dispute arise between these particular parties, or even there is a change in the law or the regulatory regime, then in that case also it creates a problem. Because if your partner exit your organization by selling their stake to some other company which aligned to you, you might be in the trouble. Or at the same time you might find that well, there is a change in regulations, and they said that well, you have to reduce the stake of your foreign partner into this particular strategic alliance. So, in those particular circumstances, how you are going to handle this scenario, that you should clearly define in this particular agreement itself. And then the process of arbitration. Now, process of arbitration is important, because many of the time your partner might not be interested to adjudicate the dispute into these land where they are basically doing the business. It might be because they might think that, well, your judiciary is taking a lot of time to solve the dispute and it is detrimental for their business, or many of the time they think that, well, whatever the law which is prevalent in your country, they do not understand better that particular law. So, they might ask for some kind of foreign arbitration, or they will look for the arbitration in an independent jurisdiction than both of your jurisdiction, like if your partner is from Germany and you are from India, they might ask for a jurisdiction of Singapore, because Singapore has a reputation of successful arbitration and quicker arbitration, and they might ask you to insert those particular clause into the agreement. So, you should be prepared for this particular issue. Now, what are the aspects you should include into your agreement? You should include in your agreement the concept relating to the management committee, and the management committee should spell out that how you are going to manage this particular existing business. Then you should talk about the responsibility of both the parties in this particular essay, and you should clearly define that what are the responsibility you have relating to that. It might be relating to it might relate to the capital, it might relate it to managing the market, it might relating to managing the production, so much so forth. Then set out the provision for straightforward sharing of know-how and technical development, and this is very important. As I was telling, most of the cases people give the know-how, but that particular know-how is not a clear sharing, because there is a many thing which has been hidden and which is not been transferred to the partner or to the strategic alliance. So, you should be clear on those particular things, that how much know-how has been transferred and what are the things has been really translated through this particular strategic alliance. Then you should talk about the duration of the alliance, and if you wanted to mutually renew this particular alliance, how you are going to do, what are the process by which you should do this particular alliance. And then there should be creation I mean, in case of the strategic alliance, there is a in generally we do not create any separate business entity, and if you are not creating a separate business entity, and then in that case there might be some kind of a regulatory compliance which you require to address, like who is going to tax give a tax, or how you are going to share the tax burden which is coming out of this particular strategic alliance. Or you can also need to spell out that if the liability is arises out of the third party action, then in that case how you are going to share that particular liability. Are you going to share that particular liability jointly or severally, or only one of you is going to share this particular liability. So, all these particular issues need to be spelled out very clearly into your agreement and in contractual aspect. So, what I suggest that in case of strategic alliance, you should enter into a number of agreement. One I mean, I can name few of them, like it can be a shareholders agreement, it can be non-disclosure agreement, it can be reward sharing agreement, it can be risk sharing agreement, so much so forth. So, or you might have a single umbrella agreement within which you are going to enter, we are going to record every aspect within this. Thank you.